So I was in the market for a new short telephoto lens that could get the job done and take my street photography to the next level. I figured that if Sigma is not going to come out with RF glass anytime soon, I'd have to resort to something more affordable in the meantime. Lo and behold, I ran into this guy right here. This is the Canon RF 85mm f2 IS macro STM, and yes, that's a mouthful. And I took it for a spin this weekend to the streets of Old San Juan, and the results might surprise you. So good to be seen, and it's even better to see you. What's going on? I hope you're doing well and staying safe. Welcome back to yet another lens review. This time we're going to be reviewing this guy right here, but before we get started, where are my manners? My name is Francis, and I'm a photographer, videographer based out of sunny San Juan, Puerto Rico. In case we haven't met before, nice to finally meet you. I've heard many good things. In today's video, I want to talk to you about my initial experience with this lens strictly for photography. I ordered it about, I want to say a week ago, and it wasn't until yesterday afternoon when I was able to put it through its paces. As most of you know, street photography is kind of my jam and where I tend to gravitate when I want to take pictures, so it was only fitting that I took it to Old San Juan, which is a mecca for tourism as well as heavy foot traffic. Quick side note, if passion for street photography is something that we share, I'm going to be making my next video about my 3 secrets to improving it. So if that's something that you're interested, consider subscribing. So first things first, as with most of my reviews, I always like to share the reason why I personally chose to invest in this lens, and that is the ability to shoot discreetly when I don't want to draw attention to myself. My RF 35 and 50 don't allow for that to happen quite as easily as with a focal length of 85mm. This means that I can round a corner, shoot over a bush, or literally in front of the person who has their phone buried in their face. Now granted, I'm not claiming that 85mm is a massively long telephoto range, but it definitely allows for more distance separation between your subject and yourself, and it's definitely an added bonus to street shooters like me. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get into the actual build of this lens. At first glance, I found it to be a little plasticky, but I feel as though it has a nice amount of heft to it. It's not bulky by any means, but I find it to be robust and stubby. Comes in at just over 1.1 pounds or a little less than 500 grams, which makes it a great walk-around lens that's not going to make your wrist fall off. I actually forgot my wrist strap, but by day's end, I didn't feel the weight of the lens much at all. It's worth mentioning that it's not weather sealed, but you guys already know how I feel about that topic. It's not raining or snowing most of the time, at least not here, so it's not something that was required of this lens in order for me to grab it. If you don't share that sentiment, then it's something to keep in mind. On the other hand, there are 2 nice bonuses that come with this 85mm, and it's both image stabilization as well as a 1:2 macro capability. I must admit, I'm an IS addict, and when using this lens on my Canon R6, which has IBIS built in, this lens was an absolute pleasure with which to shoot. This lens has 5 stops of shake correction, and when paired to an R3, 5, or 6, that can climb up to 8 stops under the right circumstances. If you're on a Canon R or RP, then I highly encourage you to consider this lens because your body unfortunately doesn't have IBIS, and this lens is going to help you quite a bit. Moreover, this lens can give you a decent macro shot with minimum focusing distance of slightly over 1 foot, which, considering how much you'll invest to get it, it's actually pretty decent for an 85. Let's switch over to image quality, as it definitely should be one of the most important talking points. This lens impressed me. There's just no other way to put it. You know when you've taken a great shot and you rush home to edit it, which is exactly what I did last night. I now want to share some of the images that I've slowly been editing in Lightroom using this lens right here. I'm no pixel peeper by any means, nor will I ever be, but take a look at these images and tell me they weren't taken with L glass. At first glance, these are really telling, and this 85mm to me is more than just serviceable. It not only got the job done, but went above and beyond as far as what I was expecting. I'm getting ready to shoot my first love story later on today with a couple and can't wait to see what those are going to look like. As with most lenses, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. I did miss a few shots here and there because of this lens's long focusing length within the barrel. In all honesty though, That's more of a user error than anything else because I failed to set the focusing parameters on this lens. As you can see here, Canon knew the way this lens was manufactured and added a switch to control just how far you want to have this lens focus when you're out doing your thing. Again, I failed to do so because my mind was more concerned with getting the distance shots, and as you can imagine, the focusing motors had to travel a bit more. Not that there's anything bad about the focusing capabilities, but it's definitely a caveat worth mentioning. Admittedly, most of my shooting was done fully wide open and close to it, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the more you stop down, the sharper this lens is going to be. Finally, I can't finish this review without addressing the elephant in the room for a lot of you at least, and that is its maximum aperture of f2. Now, I know f2 may not seem like an aperture that can provide the most amount of background separation, but I think it's more than plenty for most of you. If you're a bokeh fiend that's looking to annihilate the background completely and love that copy-pasted look on your pictures, while at the same time willing to dish a couple of grand for an f1.2 or 1.4, then this lens is obviously not one for you. Why, however, do I think f2 is good enough? Well, let's just put it this way. Most first-party lens manufacturers make zoom lenses to be f2.8, which is a standard in the industry. If you enjoy that look and would like to have even more blur in your images while not wanting to dish out the big bucks, then look no further than this bad boy right here. So what's this all gonna run you? Just $599. I think it's priced just right, and for an 85 that's got macro capabilities as well as image stabilization and fast aperture, it made it a no-brainer for me. I added a third-party lens hood for an initial $15, and this is going to be my go-to setup when shooting street and portraits for the foreseeable future, unless, of course, Sigma puts out their big boy pants on and starts dishing out some RF glass. In the meantime, this is going to be home for me. So there you have it. That's my quick review for this lens. If you've been finally convinced to pull the trigger on this guy, hooked you up with the link in the description if you want to pick one up for yourself. If you enjoyed hanging out with me, stick that thumb, you know where, and if you want to add me to the list of dudes who review gear, then stick around because I love to have you. My name is Francis, and I will see you in the next one.